Yep, let's go live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Thrive Talk. I'm here with LaShawn Speaks, or Shon Speaks. LaShawn. LaShawn Speaks. This is LaShawn Fleming. She's here with me. We know each other from Lisa Nichols' platform and her group, which is practically where I met just about everybody, where I met Ryan, Carrie, just everyone, like so many people. Did it bring us together? Isn't that incredible?
That is very incredible. I can hear you. For some reason, it's breaking up. You're breaking up to me for some reason. Am I breaking up to you?
You're not breaking up to me at all. But Zori, can you tell me if we're breaking up to anyone? Are we breaking up to anyone? Could you guys hear us clearly? I just want to know. Let me get on my iPad.
Yeah, I said, do I need to get on another computer? Because for some reason, it's breaking up. The internet's been kind of sucky. I always have bad internet. I need to get on Xfinity.
Oh well. I don't know. I don't think it's an issue. I'm not seeing that it's an issue. So
okay. Let's keep going. If it's not an issue, it's fine.
We'll just keep going. Yeah, I'm looking at it here. It seems like it's good. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I have LaShawn here for you today. LaShawn and I have been talking for months and months about doing Thrive Talk together, and it's, I guess it's one thing or another. We're planning, I don't know what it is, but finally we're here together. LaShawn is a mom, because I would say mom and wife first, because that's our primary first duty. Mom, she's a mom, she's a wife, she's an attorney. She has her podcast. It's called Up Talk to My Life. Is that correct? I said it right?
Up Talk My Life. Just Up Talk My Life.
Up Talk My Life. I can say she runs a blog, and she's just a big time influencer. She is I could tell she is very, very strong. If you watch her podcast, if you follow her, she is very, very strong. She's very active in Circle of Champions. She's always doing posts, so I'm sure you've seen her posts. And I'm just very, very excited to have her here today and finally get to connect with you. And I'm just glad to be on her podcast as well, guys.
I can't wait for that. Put you in the hot seat.
I know, right? I put everyone on the hot seat, and then it's like, ooh, you really know what a chicken I really am. All right, so
I know, right? It's always easier when you're the host and somebody comes onto your platform as opposed to vice versa. But I'm just happy glad we finally connected.
Yeah, I think it really is. Anyways, so you know what I'm noticing, that I'm not seeing what I'm seeing on Facebook is not what I'm seeing here, but that's okay. Anyway, so if this is the first time you want to connect, my name is Sarai Nammur. I am a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida. I'm the founder of Trinity Community Mental Health Center. We're a trauma-informed agency, and we've been around in Miami for the last 14 years. And I'm also the founder of Circle of Champions Worldwide, which is a nonprofit dedicated to providing education on overcoming adversity, becoming your greatest self, and basically the positive side of psychology. This show is also about the positive side of psychology, because my whole purpose with this is to demonstrate that, yes, everyone goes through things, but person after person that comes here, you're going to see that you have the ability to overcome, but not just overcome, you have the ability to grow through your adversities and grow through your traumas. And actually, that is the thing that refines you and gives you your purpose and makes us amazing. So I'm very, very passionate about that. On the one hand, I'm a trauma-informed trauma therapist, but I also know the other side. And every week here is proof after proof after proof of how you could just really and it's really just about overcoming, it's really just about thriving and giving back. And LaShawn gives back as an attorney, which we'll get into that. As an attorney, she gives back. As a podcast, she does her podcast, she gives back. But one way, I guess maybe first I'll let you say a couple words about yourself, and then I'm going to give you guys a real awesome introduction into who LaShawn is. But is there anything I'm missing, LaShawn, regarding an introduction of
you pretty much covered it. I mean, I'm an attorney. and we can kind of get into what kind of started me in doing the podcast and the blogs. The blog is entitled Free Your Thinking Mind, and that's you can go to freeyourthinkingmind.com. And I am a admin of a Juneteenth Blackout Facebook group. We have about 15,000 members, and so I just my whole goal is, I'm like you, I want to give out positivity. I want people to become their best self, and I think that's kind of because we connected through Lisa Nichols. Shout out to Lisa Nichols.
Yes, I know.
And I think she's, like you were saying, she connected so many great people, and to have connected with people through her. I'm also a co-owner of we're trying to start a fitness gym called Uppercut Fitness. And I'm a little baby angel investor. I'm learning how to do investments and stuff like that. So I got a lot going on. I try to keep myself very busy.
I see. So you know what? Everything you're talking about is giving back, teaching. It's all about, just projecting more and more positivity. So I love that. I love that. And that's what we didn't really meet at Lisa Nichols event, but we met through the platform, and I get attracted to like all that positivity. And then we start talking, and then you said Ashe, and I'm like, that's my word. So that's how we connected. I'm like, Ashe.
It is how we connected.
I think that's exactly how we met the first time, actually. You were running outside, and that's exactly what happened. But I want to give you guys a little bit, a greater taste into LaShawn and her blog cast that she did recently, because it was so awesome, and I really want you guys to hear it. So I'm gonna do it really quick right now, and I just want you guys to tell me if you could hear it. I'm gonna hold it really close to here because I have my AirPods on. So let me see if you guys could hear it. Let me see. Let me see if it takes a minute to turn on.
Grand rising.
Can you guys hear it?
Evening, depending upon what time you are listening.
Could you hear it?
This is Shon, and I know it's been a while since I have released a broadcast, but I have something for you today that I want to share, and it's called "It's Up to Me." It's up to me. And our affirmation for today: I enjoy fertilizing the seeds of your greatest dreams. I enjoy fertilizing the seeds of your greatest dreams. I came to this world in physical form to experience all that I desire, from great sex to amazing love, to super wealth, to good health, to beautiful lands, to amazing adventures, and to enjoy even the most creative inventions. I believe in myself, and I connect with people, not compete with them. I no longer limit who I am or can be to the boxes of other people's identities. I crave the unknown, and though fear enters my mind and heart, I act unafraid. I welcome new knowledge, disruptions to old stories. I create new narratives for myself and welcome those willing to write new stories about us with me. I crave creative innovations in my life.
Why did it stop?
I am no longer weakened by my emotions. I use my emotions as insight tools to transition me from one experience to better experiences. I seek progress, skill acquisition, and inner wisdom for better living. I save myself by growing into better answers to old problems, which in turn teaches me better ways to live. I am my own savior. I have to be, because no one in this world is any different than me. Not even their most powerful constructs are better than me. I am energy, and my focused attention is my sculptor. I want to become, it's within the power of my intention. I can bend reality if necessary because I am an energy being that is able to be. So what I can imagine becomes more possible for me. I choose to surrender to just being me. I may not be able to do everything in this world, but I can try to become anything. I came to this world to live, so it's up to me to be, and you are no different than me. Our affirmation for today: I enjoy fertilizing the seeds of your greatest dreams.
Ooh.
Thank you so much for listening to the audio broadcast.
So enough said, right? Off the mic. That was
Yes.
say that line again. I am the fertilizer. Say it again. That was so awesome.
Wait a minute. Hold on. I want to be able to
I am
quote
the
it right.
fertilizer. I am the fertilizer to your something greatness or great. I don't know. Somebody out there.
I'm the fertilizer to your greatest dreams. Because I have a friend, she's actually my writing partner. Her name is Sharita Franklin. She's writing a book. And every time we talk, she always calls me the fertilizer. That is her nickname for me, is the fertilizer. And when she first called me, I was like, what do you mean I'm the fertilizer? She says, Shon, she says, what you do is you sprinkle fertilizer on things that's within people that they don't even know. She says, so don't even worry about, because sometimes when you're kind of do what we do, sometimes you wonder if you're actually touching people, right? If you're actually inspiring and transforming people. And so she says, you don't even have to worry about it. She says, you are. She says, just continue to be the fertilizer. And then as people, the greatness of people start to merge out, they will connect that with you. And so that's
I love that. I love that. I love that. And I think yes, and it's just I love that so much. I love all this topic. I love everything related to goodness and for that whole fertilizing idea. I really love it. I think we're all fertilizers for each other. I think we all need one another, and we need each other to. We always hear about be the light for each other, but I'd like also be the fertilizer for each other. I think that's powerful. That's so powerful. What did you come up with? What really gave birth to this last one that you did, this last podcast that you did?
This last podcast, I think it came out from a place of, I always talk about responsibility, right? That I think my life started to really change when I started to take responsibility for myself. And one of the things that I was thinking about a couple of days ago was, it's so much going on in the world. We could talk about all of the issues that's kind of going on in the world. But I was thinking about it, and I said, you know what? But it's up to me. It's up to me to tell the story about me, to tell the story the narrative that I want to tell. And I realized that's something that I've been focusing on for the past couple of years, is sort of, I have a strong desire to write a new narrative, a new narrative for my own life, a new narrative for people who identify the way I identify, just a new narrative for the world in general. But I think it starts with you first, right? And so I think for me, when I wrote that yesterday, I was like, okay, you know what? It's up to me. And I think when you take the position of being sort of the fertilizer, we have to cross fertilize each other. I grow from you, you grow from me, but you have to be willing to stand in being who you are, right? You know, as much as I like you, Sarah, I can't be who you want me to be. I have to try to learn how to be me and be comfortable in it. And so, and I think when you live your life from that place, not so much that life get quote unquote easier, but you become more in alignment with yourself, and you don't have that inner struggle that I think a lot of people deal with.
Of course. This whole thing is so aligned with my whole way of thinking, because who wants a duplicate of me or a duplicate of you? Who wants that? We want more originality, and we want more, like, you know, if you were trying to be me, or I'm trying to be you, we wouldn't be giving our greatness. And even what you wrote yesterday, that's purely yours, and it comes from, you know, a very unique place inside of you. So absolutely, the more we are more of ourselves, the more of our gift and that fertilizing gift comes out, because you're just being you. So that's did you struggle with that in the past? Did you struggle in the past with being yourself?
Yeah, it's about, you have to own yourself. Like, I don't think I did not own who I was, but I didn't know that I wasn't owning me, right? I thought
Right.
living life the way I was supposed to. I thought I did everything right, Sarah. I went to school, I got good grades. I followed the blueprint perfectly, right? I did. I really, really did. I was very intentional about it. But after following the blueprint, I still was like, is this it?
Were you doing that for somebody else, or was it your blueprint, or was it a blueprint given?
No, it wasn't my blueprint. It was the blueprint for life. I wanted the white picket fence, the 2.5 kids. I wanted the good job. You know, I wanted to make sure I got a college degree. I did all the things that I thought that I was supposed to be the good little Black girl who would make it in society, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
I still had this inner resistance to myself that I did not know where it came from, right? It was just like, okay, well, I got good grades, I got this, I got that, but I'm still not happy with me, right? I wasn't, I tell you this, and you probably have done this. One day, I was reading something, and it was a challenge for you to go in front of a mirror and to look in the mirror and say to yourself, look yourself dead in the eye and say, I love you.
Right.
So I was like, all right, I'll do it. So I went, stood in front of the mirror, looked at myself eyeball to eyeball, and I said, I love you, Shon. And after I said that, Sarah, I burst into tears.
Wow.
Bawling tears. In fact, it was one of the first blogs that I ever wrote. After doing that exercise, I burst into tears, and it was like, why are you crying? Don't you love yourself? Right? But I was crying. So I made a commitment to myself that I was going to keep going back in front of that mirror, and I was going to keep telling myself, I love you, until those tears turned into a smile. And weeks before that occurred. And it led me down this whole journey of, why was it when I looked at myself, why did me telling myself I love myself, why did that bring tears? Why didn't that?
What did you come up with? Why do you think that happened?
I really feel like society did a number on me. I think when I looked at myself, all I saw was the negatives, right? Well, and not that they were negatives, I just thought that they were. My nose was too big, my skin was too dark, my hair was too kinky, it was all an idea about how I was supposed to look that I did not naturally look like, right? When I opened up the magazines, my hair wasn't long and flowy, right? But yet I wanted long and flowy hair. My skin wasn't lighter, but yet lighter skin seemed to be what was prettier, right? Now that, I think, messed with me psychologically, and it showed up when I was trying to own just being me, right? I'm trying to look at the mirror and say, okay, you know what? I love you exactly how you are. You don't have to change anything. And that just opened my eyes to the fact that I was resisting my natural self. That's why I'm a big component of, you have to own who you are, even if you can't necessarily explain yourself yet, right? You know what I'm saying? You gotta allow yourself to go through these changes. I kept trying to fix myself. Does that make sense? Like I kept trying to fix myself, and it was like, okay, but I don't think anything needs fixing. I'm learning myself. So now I'm okay with learning myself and growing and changing, you know. To me, that's a strength. And so I don't have to be like everybody else. I'm learning how to be more like myself.
But even saying the word like fix myself, that there's an assumption there that there's something broken or something not right. And where did that come from for you? When you said it's a societal thing, like where did that message come from? Was it from society? Was it from your family? Was it from your particular area where you're from? Where do you think that came from?
I think it was a smorgasbord of a lot of things. You know, I'm from the Deep South. I'm from Mississippi. I was raised Christian, and I come from a very strong religious background, and so one of the things that I think played a part was that I saw myself sort of. We had these sort of religious cliches that I don't think we really knew that they had impact psychologically, right? And I don't even know if there was cliches. Like, you know, we would say, you know, oh, I'm a worm, or woe is me, or, you know, God didn't, you know, Jesus came for the Jews and we're Gentiles. And so you had all of these identifications, right? These labels. And I didn't seem to fit in all of the chosen labels, right? Like I was an afterthought, right? Or, you know, I came in on the rear. And it was perfectly fine all my life. I didn't see it as a problem, to be honest with you. Until
you didn't know the difference. You didn't know the difference either.
Like, okay. One day I started to see it as a problem.
Wow, that's so deep and powerful, and I think a lot of people could resonate with that, even if they didn't have your experiences, because there are things that happen in our childhood that we don't see something wrong with it because it's just the way it is, right? So it's just the way it is. So we walk around thinking, well, it's just the way it is. And it isn't until you see something wrong with it. You have to get to the point where you actually judge it. If you don't judge it, the danger is that it's just the way it is. And next thing you're 30 and it's just the way it is. And then you're 40, well, it's just the way it is. And it continues to be just the way it is until one day you decide, no, that's not the way it is. And I'm going to make sure it's not like that. And it's very powerful for people that are listening, you know, because we all have that. We all have, we have something in our life that we have decided, you know, that's just the way it is. That's the way it's always been. And I'm wondering, like, with the listeners out there, you know, how your story resonates with them as far as what is it in your life, listeners, that you have up to now allowed or tolerated or maybe felt uncomfortable with, but never truly allowed yourself to change it, that you're telling yourself, well, it's always been this way. And that's just the way it is, that maybe you need to change, you know, and that's why we talk about these things here. And, you know, it's not easy to come on Facebook Live and spill all your beans, you know, and do all that. It's not easy to do that. I started talking about myself a little bit, so it's not easy to do that, but it's important because it allows everyone else, like everyone listening, and I'm listening to you, and I could identify so much with while you're talking. I'm totally identifying with you, but it's so important for everyone out there to realize we all have something that we have decided, well, you know, I could live with this, and that's just like it's like an uncomfortable comfort zone, you know, because we're not really comfortable with it, but we're comfortable with it. You know, it's like a strange place where you want.
I can give you an example. I was having a conversation with some people today, and you know, we were just kind of talking or whatever, and somebody made the comment that, you know, Black people are being punished by God. And so, when the person made that comment, it got my blood boiling, right? Because it was like, well, I'm not punished by anybody. I'm not even owning that anymore. But I remember that was a story, a narrative that I accepted as a truth, right? Because that's how I was taught, right? And so that, we're punished, and, we're waiting for, 400 years to pass, et cetera, et cetera. And I never asked the question, well, when did the 400 years start? So that when the 400 years over, so that I could stop feeling as if Black people are, a black dot on society, and God is punishing us. But do you see the psychological problem that you can have and not even know it? I actually, all my life, actually was okay with that. I was okay with feeling like, or I was okay with being told that, God was, that Black people had some punishment by God on their lives, right? And I never had a problem with it because I thought that that's the way it was.
And it's even worse if the people saying that to us are authority figures, parents, pastors, ministers, whatever it is. And it sounds like in your case, it may have been like very close people, but it's even worse when it's our authority figures that we're receiving, the rules of life from. They're telling us the rules of life that we're going to keep in our subconscious like forever, because you still have that. I still have stuff in my subconscious. I could say something else, but deep inside, there's things that is so hard to rip out of me. It's so hard to rip out like some ideas that have become my core ideas, like that movie about the feelings, that the core, the core ideas or the core feelings, they're still stuck in me. And now we're just more aware of it. But that's so true what you're saying. And that's another point that I want people to understand. What our parents or authority figures in our life told us as children are not the law, and it's not a fact. It's their opinion, and it's also how they were raised, what they learned. And as adults, we have an opportunity to analyze that. We have an opportunity to look at it and say, okay, is this serving me? Is this serving me? Is this thought serving me? And if it's not, then you have to spend, I think, the rest of your life fighting that idea, because if it's like stuck in you, you have to every day remind yourself it's not a worthy idea. It's not serving me.
Exactly. That is an absolute question that I think everybody should ask. Is something serving you? But I think a lot of times the reason why people don't ask if something is serving you is because they don't know what they want, right? Because a lot of we can get very tied into other people's rights and wrongs, right? Yes. We judge our entire lives by other people's rights and wrongs, and we don't even know what we think is right or wrong for our own life. So you can only judge whether a thought, an action serve you if you know what you want, so that you can then see if it's an alignment between what it is that you're wanting to do or what you're thinking and what you want. I think for a lot of us, like in that conversation I had today, saying that, that God is punishing Black people, that thought doesn't serve us, because it tells us that we have no authority or responsibility over our lives, and therefore we are powerless, right?
Exactly.
So if I'm living my life from a powerless mentality, then I don't take up the responsibility of making the changes and adjustments that I may need to make in order to do more of what serves me.
Exactly.
Right? And that's what it's all about. That's the whole reason I started my blog, as a way of freeing myself from my own mind that wasn't thinking. Because I all of a sudden realized I was 40-something years old, almost a 50-year-old woman, and I had not been thinking, right? I've been doing a lot of believing, but I had not been thinking. You know what I'm saying? And I just didn't perpetuate that in my life anymore.
Yeah, because like what you were saying right now is so powerful, because you're saying, when you don't take responsibility for your life, when you accept these things. Why? Because it goes back to what you said earlier, which is the idea. Well, this is just the way it is. If you're told Black people are being punished by God, that falls back into, well, the situation is what it is. So there's what you're saying. It doesn't move you to take responsibility. And something I love that you stand for is taking responsibility for your life. And part of taking, what you're saying, I'm going to highlight, underline it, and say it all over again, because it is what you're saying. If there's two things that you said that if everyone here would do right now, until like 2021, your whole life could change. If you take responsibility for your life, but taking responsibility for your life is such a like vague construct, right? But how do you take responsibility for your life? Step one is what LaShawn is saying. Ask yourself, what do you want? Like, we're so busy asking other people, what do you want? What do you want to eat? What do you like? Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, what do I want out of my relationships? What do I want out of my health? What do I want out of my day? What do you want? If you knew what you wanted out of your day, if you woke up in the morning and had a clear intention of what you want out of your day, wouldn't your day be so much better? That would truly make you the creator of your life. If you knew what you wanted out of relationships, you wouldn't just fall into a relationship because some look good or smell good. You know what I mean? I mean, I know we're older, so we're able to say this. I wish I would have known that like 30 years ago. But what do you want? It's such an important question. It sounds like such a dumb question. Nobody asked that, but it's the most important question you could ask yourself. What do you really want?
I actually think, Sarah, I think that's the number one question. I think you need to start.
It is.
You need to
Of course.
Yeah. If you started with what do I want, a lot of stuff that you get caught up in, other people's stuff, you wouldn't even get caught up in, because you're like, that doesn't align with what I want. Right? I can't even process myself into doing what you're wanting me to do or saying what you wanted me to say, because it doesn't align with what I want out of my life. Right? To me, those main things: relationship, who you are as a person, what you think you can do in life, all of those things got to come from a core part of you. Right? Yeah. I can connect with you, but you can't give me the core part of me, because I have something to share in this world that's mine to share. Right? Now, it may not be on the same level as yours. It may not be exactly like yours. It may not even have, quote unquote, the same impact, right? But it's still mine to share, and I have to own it. See, I think now if we start to own more of being ourselves, we'll have greater impact, right? Because then you're giving whatever part of that uniqueness that's you're giving that, instead of me, trying to deny, that my nose is big and my skin is dark. When I start to look in the mirror and see the beauty of my nose being big and my skin being the color that it is, you start owning, right? And allowing who I naturally am to empower me. You know what I'm saying? And I think what happened was, over the years, through the media, and not even social media, because we didn't have social media way back then. Right. We just had regular media, print media, etc. I think the idea of beauty, the idea of intelligence, I think we all kind of looked at it as being opposite of us. And when you think of it as being, well, oh, they always get it, they always have, everything always work out for them. If you see yourself like that, then everything is going to work out for them and not for you, because what you believe becomes your reality. You know what I'm saying? So that's why it's really critical that you be in control of the things that you believe about yourself first.
Yeah, exactly. And it starts with that question of what do I really want in those different areas. So we easily get caught into so much philosophy, let's call it. We could be philosophical here all day long.
All day
long.
I
want to get into a little bit like, so you were talking about, I could see from what you're saying that religion had a big impact in your life. And in whatever direction that goes. Because maybe at one point, I don't know if it was a positive thing and then it turned into something painful. And there are a lot of stories like that. Like my mom's story with religion, because my grandmother was a very, very strict Baptist, and that caused so much psychological trauma for my mom, because it didn't allow her to be herself. It didn't allow her to be anything of herself. My grandmother was an amazing person, but the way that the religion was used, it just really damaged my mom. And my mom was a big time rebel because of it. Like the trauma response was a rebel. She became a big time rebel. But how did religion impact you, and how? Because I know that it had a big impact. You sort of described that, but how did that change you? And where are you now with religion?
It wasn't. I didn't have a bad relationship with religion necessarily, and I never sought out to disconnect from religion. A lot of times people think that there's some church. People like to say, "Oh, you had church hurt," and it's like, no, I didn't really have that.
Okay.
I think and I grew up. My dad was a pastor. I was a minister. And so I think what happened was I just grew in a knowledge and an understanding that expanded the limitations of religion. I started to see religion as something that was literally contorting me, right? It's like if I read something, and let's say I had a thought, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Preparing a sermon. And this was supposed to be like the sermon in the bag, right? This is the sermon that ministers will prepare so that they can kind of keep in the safe. So if you have to be called last minute to preach, you'll have a sermon already prepared, right? And the sermon that I had prepared was I had entitled it "Your Faith Power," and it was coming from the scripture about the woman with the issue of blood. And I love that story about the woman with the issue of blood. She touched the hem of Jesus' garment and she was made whole. But as I was preparing the sermon and I was going through that scripture, something in me said, wow, she actually got healed long before touching the garment. Now, as I was saying it and I was writing up the sermon, I also, because I had been meditating and was paying close attention to myself at the same time, right? And so I was like, I noticed that I was fighting that thought, right? Like it was like, okay, you can't think that, Shon. You can't think that she was healed before actually touching the hem. And I had never asked myself that question. I had never thought that. But in reading that scripture, preparing that sermon at that time, given the facts that, she went to the doctors, all the doctors, and they couldn't heal her. And then one day, she had heard about Jesus and she said, if I could just, touch his hem, I will be made whole. And so she made her way through the crowd and she, touched his hem, and he looked at his disciples and said, "Who touched me?" And he looked down and he didn't find her. She announced to him, "It was me." Right. And then he didn't say to her, "Okay, my garment touched you." He says, "Your faith has healed you." Right. And so, well, when did she have faith? Her faith actually started long before she made her way through the crowd.
Right.
And as logical and as simple as that analysis was, I could not own that as the analysis of that sermon, of that scripture. And for the first time I had that analysis, I saw it that way, but I also saw that I could not see it that way. And so I kept saying, well, Shon, you can't see it that way. You can't. It was the garment. Jesus made her whole. And I had that struggle there. And because I had that struggle, I was like, "Oh, Shon, you can't do that." So I just ignored myself. And I said, "Nope, you can't think that." Finished the sermon and turned it in. But it never left me. And I started to pay more attention. And I started to see all the many other ways I could not own my own thoughts.
Ooh, okay.
Pay attention to that. And that began to bother me because I couldn't own my own thought. If let's say if I was looking at this and I was like, man, that really does kind of look, blue. And then, you say, no, in my head, no, that's purple. That can't be blue. There's no way that could be blue. And then it's like, but it is blue. I think it kind of got some blue in it. You know what I'm saying? It was like, and I found myself having this struggle in my head.
Right.
I could not own my own thinking. And I'm telling you, Sarah, it bothered me so.
Right.
I thought something was wrong. I was like, man. And then all of a sudden I was talking to somebody. I said, it's like literally, I feel like I'm doing this trying to fit.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And so I said, okay, well, what if you just own your thinking, right? So then if let's say I would go to, church, and let's say I hear a sermon or whatever, and let's say I didn't agree with the analysis. I said, okay, Shon, just own how you see that, right? Just own your version, own your interpretation. And as I did more of that, I think I just expanded past the need of religion in that traditional sense.
Ooh, that sounds so good, because I could read so much into that. You stepped into yourself. It's like you were contorting into becoming yourself, which is so cool. Like, it's as if you never you accepted the status quo all along, and at one point you woke up to, wait a minute, that's not even my thought. I just accepted it. Like, I don't know if you realize that the theme across our whole conversation so far has been this. This is the core of the conversation, which is the struggle that you've had with accepting the status quo, and this is the way it is. This is the way it is with religion, or this is the way it is with Black people, or this is the way women should be, or this is the way little Black girls should be. And then it's like branches of so many different ideas that were given to you of how things should be in all these cases, where you at some point contorted your way out of it. And you're like, no, I'm going to tell you what I think. That's so. And aren't you so much of a better human being? And don't you have so much more value to give by becoming yourself and who you are?
Yes.
Like,
let me tell you something, Sarah. We always talk about freedom, right? That's we love to say that, but you're not free until you are free in your own ability to think for yourself.
Right.
And to me, I literally stepped into freedom, and I started to consult myself about my own life, right?
Yeah.
And it brought a joy, right, that really is unmatched, right? Because it's like, wow, okay, I get to see it that way. And guess what? I also get to change my mind, right? And
that's okay. And that's okay to think one thing today and another thing tomorrow. It's okay to change my mind.
I get to change my mind.
Yeah, it's okay to say yes to you today and go, you know what, I thought about it and I don't think I'm going to do that. Like, that's okay to do.
It's okay to do. This is what I say, I got off of the guilt forgiveness cycle. I had lived most of my life on a guilt forgiveness cycle that was normal, right? I was comfortable with, if I messed up, I'm gonna feel guilty, I'm gonna ask forgiveness. And then guess what? I'm gonna mess up, I'm gonna feel guilty, and I'm gonna ask forgiveness. And many people live their lives on this guilt forgiveness cycle, and they don't even know they're on it because it's so normal. You're so comfortable with it, right? And I don't want to be on that cycle, because I say it like this: I was extremely dizzy and I didn't even know it. Mm-hmm. And when I got off the guilt forgiveness cycle, it was like, okay, you know what? Sometimes I'm going to do things that other people might not like. Sometimes I'm going to do things that I may not even like. I may do it and have to make some adjustments, and it's okay. I allow myself to make adjustments to being me, because I'm learning. I say like this: I like to live in learn mode.
Right.
And if I'm forever a learner, there is an allowance for me to grow and to change. And that's all I try to give to people. I don't try to force my opinions on people. I try to just give space, be you.
And around what age did all these changes start happening for you?
The religious change actually didn't happen until about 2.5 years ago. I guess about 2 years ago now. right? At least in a sense of I'm not religious. I think if I go back through my journals, back in 2012, I wrote in my journal, who am I? And I answered myself and I said, I'm a lawyer, I'm a mother, I had I'm all these things. And then I just kind of left it there. And then I think a year or so later, I went back to that journal entry and I looked at all of the things that I said and I said, but that's not who I am, right? And I couldn't do nothing with it because all I knew was the labels. All I knew was I'm a Black girl, I'm Southern Mississippi, I'm a Christian, I'm a this, I'm a that. Fast forward maybe about 2016, 2017, I started to sort of look at good and evil very like they were the same coin but different sides, so to speak, right?
Right.
And I wasn't looking at it from a religious standpoint. It was just like, but I was just like, okay, but if God it was this whole religious game that was in my head that I didn't even know I was playing with myself. I was like, okay, I believe that God is all powerful, all creator, created everything. I wholeheartedly believe that. But at some point in 2016, 2017, maybe, I started to, because I used to always say, well, if I did something bad, the devil made me do it, right? I always blame the devil for the bad things that I did.
Right.
Until one day, I no longer wanted to blame the devil. And I was like, okay, well, if I think God created everything, then that means that God created the devil. So wouldn't God and the devil be one and the same, right? Maybe it's a perspective of the thing or the experience or the thought that's making it good versus evil or God versus the devil. And I remember asking somebody that question, and they thought that I had lost my living mind.
I was gonna say, did you get a little backlash for that?
But this is the thing. When I asked that question, I wasn't even trying not to be religious. It was just me thinking out loud.
It was a question. Yeah, it was just
I was just thinking out loud. Yeah. And then I don't think I let religion go till probably 2018, 27, at the end of 2020. I think it was probably the end of 2017 is probably when I let it go. And then that's when, which is kind of weird. You could psychoanalyze me on this one. That is when I merged good and evil into one, and I didn't fight it anymore.
But that's actually very healthy. That was very healthy in your part. You know why? Because something that you said earlier sounded a lot like, I needed to be perfect. I followed the blueprint. I did everything exactly like I was supposed to do. And so there was something inside of you saying, I gotta be perfect. I gotta follow the blueprint. You know, whatever blueprint is, and all that. And merging the good and the bad is so healthy. It's so healthy and healing because we're not perfect. We're perfectly imperfect. So merging the good and the bad, it must have been like very, very like life-changing and powerful for you. It was.
Really was. It really was.
It was.
Yeah. It helped me to step into being me.
It got into stepping into being human also. It's like, I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to be perfect. And then along with that goes, you know, and I'm not being punished because of this thing that people are saying, you know, because you're human. And that's where you took responsibility. And I mean, you know that you can actually put all this together and turn it into a book, because it's all these pieces together make so much sense. Like all pieces that you're telling me, I see it as a bunch of pieces that would actually put it all together into something that makes a lot of sense. Because the way you grew up gave you, you know, you're not saying that, but I heard it. You didn't say it, but it sounds like something in your environment demanded perfection, even though on the other side it also said, hey, no, it is what it is. Just stay quiet. It's just what it is. So why fight it? Why fight it? It's strange how those two things, those messages you got, and they sort of shake you. They sort of shake you until you stood up to both of those things. Yeah. It's just so good that you did that. That's so awesome for your not only your mental health, but your physical health. Just physically, it has to make a huge difference.
It does. It was literally, you know, I describe it as it was a weight that was lifted, and I didn't even realize I was carrying the weight. Right.
Oh,
That kind of goes to the theme of just of freedom. It's like I was carrying this mental weight of having to believe things that if I just started to ask the right questions, is not even really believable, but I believe them, and those things subconsciously boxed me into, you know, decision making. It affected every aspect of my decision making, right? And that's not to say that I'm quote unquote made bad decisions, right? Because you know, I did all of the things that society says you're supposed to do, right? But it just boxed my thinking in, and I don't even know how to really describe it. I just wasn't thinking for myself, but I did not know that I wasn't thinking for myself.
right, because you subscribe to being a good girl. You were a good girl, and you've always been a good girl. I'm sure you've always been a good girl. It's like you're showing me that you've always been just a good girl, and you're not even a bad girl just because you just give yourself permission to be yourself. But that's not being a bad girl. That's not being
a bad girl. Yeah.
Yeah. Does that make a difference in the way that you raise your daughter? Like you like how like what? Because I was going to ask you, what would you say to your younger self? But you almost do have a younger self, because sometimes when we have daughters, I mean, I don't know if that has happened to you, but I have a 20 soon to be 24-year-old, 20-year-old boy, 2 boys.
Oh wow.
But my daughter, I don't know, she's like a mirror of me, and so it's almost like I'm raising myself. You know, I don't know if that happens to you. I don't know if it happens to all women, but as a female, I look at my daughter, I'm like, I just want her to have everything I didn't have, or have the ideas I didn't have, or that. Does that happen to you?
Oh yeah, my daughter is, you know, my dad used to call me a rebel, and my daughter is a rebel. Yeah, but she's me, right? She is a reflection of me. The only thing that I think that I do maybe a little different is I give her room to be that. Okay. I try not to make her feel. And I don't think, and let me just say that I don't think my parents made me feel any kind of guilt. I think they raised me in what they thought was best, and I think it was right. It helped me to be and shape me into who I am now. I don't take anything away from it, right? But there was an allowance that my dad, as religious as my dad and my parents were, they gave me space to be the rebel. You know what I'm saying? And I think that that's kind of the thing that I try to give more to my daughter. Just give her space. Okay, you know what? You have these ideas. You have, you know, you're your own person, right? Because I realize I'm not raising a child. I'm raising an adult.
Exactly. Right? You're raising, yeah, that's so good.
You know,
and you're raising,
and I got to give her space to be that, right?
Right, and by doing that, you're allowing her to be awake to herself. Because when we try to like, and I know we do this. We're supposed to hand down values. We're supposed to hand down, you know, what's good and bad and all of this stuff. But we need to be so careful in doing that, because some of the things that we're handing down are just things that were handed down to us that may not be very healthy. So we have to be so careful to raise a child that's conscious. Otherwise, she's going to be, like, for example, everything you mentioned was a lot of you going through life on a program in a very unconscious way through this program that was handed down to you until you woke up, like you decided to wake up. And so now you're different. So what you're saying is, like, it's so important to raise our kids. I ask, instead of us feeding them answers, when they ask us something, we say, well, what do you think? And allowing them to figure out for themselves, like the questions that you said, what do you want? And what do you think? And those type of things is already helping them, like, grow that muscle that we maybe never had the chance to do. So that's like so important. So important.
Very important. Very important. Yeah. I try to give both of my children the space to learn themselves and to grow. and I don't put the Sunday habit on them. That was put on me.
That's so funny. I'm laughing because my mom, she'd make me go to church every Sunday with my grandmother because that was her way of saying, let me give something to my, she would just try to like please my grandmother by saying, take them. And then my brother and I, we would behave so bad at church, so bad.
Yeah, I don't do that. I don't put the Sunday habit on my children. Not that they can't go to church if they wanted to go. They can go with their dad if they want to. Yeah. It's not something, I don't want to raise them with this obligation that they have to do that. I was raised with an obligation that I had to go. And it's funny because it took me probably a year and a half to get comfortable even missing a Sunday service. Right? Because I just felt uncomfortable. I felt like if I missed on Sunday and something bad happened on Monday, it was a result of missing on Sunday. Right. Do you understand that mental loop you can be on? That's not free.
No, it's not. It's not. So what would you say to any listener that is still stuck in their program, and their program doesn't have to be religion, it could be anything else.
It could be anything, yeah, it doesn't have to be that.
So someone that's stuck in their program and they're starting to sort of get into this area of awakening where they're questioning things, like what would you say to them as far as living more of a conscious life? What advice do you have for them?
The best advice I think to living more of a conscious life is start to pay attention to yourself more. And I don't know if that sounds cliche, but you really have to pay attention to how you're thinking, how you respond to people, the actions that you take, right? Pay attention and then just start to ask yourself, okay, if you could live a life that is reflective of your greatest dream about yourself.
Oh, I love that.
Do all these things you're thinking and doing, to use your words, do they serve you? Do they serve you being that person? I don't know if you listen to Vishen Lakhiani, but he has his 3 most important questions. And I actually did it with, I have an accountability group that I meet with on Sundays. And with me and one of the girls, I did it with her. And it's the 3 most important questions are this, what kind of experience would you like to have in this world? Right? Think about those. Ask yourself, what experiences would you like to have in this world? And then the second question is, how would you, in order to be the person that have these experiences, how would you need to grow? Okay. Then after you kind of go through that analysis, if you were the person that have these experiences and you've grown in the way that you need to grow, what would you contribute to the world? And when you start to go, when you do that analysis with those 3 important questions, you start to become closer to yourself.
Right? I love that.
Because because you have to do it from a place of honesty with yourself, right? And so for me, it was like, one of the things I always wanted to do was I wanted to write. I want to write. For years, decades, ever since I was a kid, I wanted to write. But guess what? I never did. I never wrote anything. And if I did write something, I never shared it. Right? Yeah. So it's like, okay, well, Shon, you say you want to write, but you're not showing up in your writing. And the reason you're not showing up in your writing is because you are concerned or afraid that somebody's not going to like it.
Right.
But are you writing for them to like it, or are you writing because that's who you are? Right? Or you want to have an experience in this life as a writer. And if you want to have an experience in this life as a writer, you can do some things to maybe improve your writing so that you can connect with more people, but you still have to show up as a writer, right? You can go to Lisa Nichols Speak and Write. You can learn some techniques, right? You can do all of these things, but at the end of the day, you still got to sit down and write in order to have that experience, right? In order for you to be able to make that contribution. So I think somebody that's wanting to sort of either deprogram themselves or become more aware of the programs. Because a lot of times you're not even aware of the programs, right? It's just to start to pay attention to yourself and ask yourself, what experiences in this life do you want to have? And that's what happened with me with regards to just, with the identity of being Black, right? I claim the Black identity, not because I think that that's actually my identity, right? It's just that I know that that's what was passed down to me. That's what we call ourselves Black people. But at the end of the day, I have to own and I have to design what that means for me, right? And it can't mean that I'm punished by the Almighty God. That don't work for me, right?
Right, that's a terrible identity.
Yeah, that doesn't work for me.
Who do you have to be punished by God every day? Like, that's what it means at the end. Like, who do I have to be to make that a truth? Wait
a minute. Think about what the question you just asked. Who do I have to be to make that true, that I'm a people or I'm a person, a part of a people that have to be punished all day?
Exactly.
That controls all aspects of your life and how you should.
Yeah, it does. And what does that say about who I have to be, who I am, and who I was, and who my people have been, which doesn't even go along with the story of that African Americans came from kings and queens. Like, it doesn't even go along with that. It doesn't even go along with that.
Exactly. But a lot of that has to be with the fact that comes from the fact that a lot of people don't know, are not very intentional in wanting to know their history. That's one other thing I want to share before we go. That's another thing that happened to me during that time period that I think I changed, kind of let religion go, was that I was on this quest to sort of prove to myself that, as a Black person, I'm worthy, that I'm good enough. And so I have a lot of books. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go through the history books. I gotta find some history about, Black people, African Americans. And I noticed there, all of my history books had Black people starting at slavery.
Right.
The question I asked myself, I said, well, did white people make us? All my history books seem to be starting at slavery. You mean to tell me we didn't have an existence before slavery? And when I tell you the journey of learning my history before slavery contributed significantly in letting traditional religion go. It contributed significantly because I realized that all of what that did was box me into an identity that made me afraid to look beyond what was given to me in the history books.
Right. Wow.
That's where you're
powerful. That's powerful. That's powerful. And I'm going to tell you, you don't even know that you've been such a blessing to me tonight, like listening to you, because even though I'm a therapist, I'm a trauma therapist, I mean, if you hear me talk, it's all about greatness and self-love and all of this. And, as all of us say, when we speak, we're really speaking to ourselves. And something I've been struggling with, that I have someone that I work with that has been asking me this question, and realized, I'm like, wait, what? Like, I don't, if it even feels uncomfortable, which is, what do I want? So I have someone who is asking me constantly, what do you want? Not why do you want it? Now, not, it's what do you really want? Like, what do you really want out of? And now you're sort of confirming that. And as you're speaking, like you said, a real great question is, what life experiences do you want to have? That is such a powerful question. And if we ask ourselves more questions like this, we'd be way more intentional in creating our lives. And if you hear me talk, I'm constantly talking about be the creator of your life, create your life, create your life. In the meantime, I have no idea. I can't even answer, what do I want? So like in the last couple of weeks, I've been trying to answer that question. And let me tell you, if you grow up in a way where no one ever asked you this, or it was never really valued, or even if you wanted something, there wasn't space for what you wanted, or many, many people grow up like this for various reasons, you never know how to ask yourself. And you might grow into becoming like exactly what you said. I also followed the blueprint. I followed this blueprint that TV, because I grew up the way that I knew what the blueprint was because TV showed me that too. Like certain shows on TV that I was like, oh, that's not supposed to be. Hold on, that's the blueprint I'm gonna follow. You know, and I moved to California. I had to get away. I moved to California. I lived in Kansas. Like I'm a Miami girl, you know, and I lived in Kansas, and it was like going back. It was like going back in time. It was weird. It was like I'm like, wait a minute, I'm like in Roots. You remember that movie Roots? That's how it felt. I was like, what is this? I was like, it felt strange. I was scared to leave the house. It was very, 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 very strange living over there. But there were a lot of good people, but it was strange. But the point is that if you don't ask yourself like, what do you want? You go through life not getting the things that really please you and turn you into the type of person who's really going to deliver greatness that I keep talking about. So I'm so glad you said.
If you don't know what you want, then you're going to take what other people give you, and you're not going to have a choice but to accept it, right? And you have
to write that tomorrow. You better write that tomorrow. That's perfect what you just said. But you just said, if you don't ask for what you want, you're gonna accept what people give you. That was like, do you know you just popped like a major like bomb right now? That is so true. You need to write that up because I want to steal it from you.
I like to come up with me some quotes, child. But you have to, you know, and I think the thing is that I became unafraid to dream a future that I can create.
That's awesome.
Right? And now, does that mean it's going to turn out perfectly? I don't know. But I am along for the journey, right?
That's awesome.
And that's what became exciting for me. Right? I realized for me, I was afraid of the unknown, and now I relish in the unknown, because it's only in the unknown that I can create new things for myself, right? So now I can be honest about what I really want, right?
You need to write about this.
Huh?
You need to write a book about this. Everything you're talking about right now, you need to write a book about all this.
The books are coming. I'm still correcting myself.
How do we do this, Lishan? You said we relish in the unknown. Is that what you said? Like, how do we do that?
I relish in the unknown. Let me put it like this, and I don't want to go, because I'm not trying to beat up religion. People can be religious. I have no problem with it, right? But to me, the way I look at it was, for me, when I finally awoke to religion, I realized one of the things that make religion so powerful, and what made it powerful to me, was that it took the unknown and gave it a story. And I believe the story as an absolute. And now I realize that that was an unknown. No one could ever actually know the things that I believe are absolute, right? So what I did is that I gave life back its mystery. Right? I became comfortable with the mystery of life, and I became comfortable with life unfolding for me, right? And I also became comfortable with me creating life as it unfolds, right? And so that to me was like, so for me, I let go of somebody else's imagination being my absolute, and just allowed myself to be comfortable in the unknown, right? I tell people, like, and I would have thought that this probably wasn't 100% true for me until my dad passed away last year. My dad passed away last year, and it was unexpected. You know, he just had a surgery. He was doing well. I just went and see him in the hospital in Mississippi, and me and my dad were very close. We talked every day.
I remember that. I remember you talking about it.
And when he passed, I think that had he passed 5 years ago, it would have broke me down. I probably would still be in a deep state of grief.
Right.
But when he passed, I no longer had the religious construct about what, right? And so for me, I thought about my dad, and I said, wow, okay, my dad is no longer in his physical human body form, right? But, you know, but I still feel him. And so I remember when my family member, my sister called and, you know, told me that my dad had passed. And I was like, you know, of course I burst out into tears, and she was at the hospital with him. And I was like, I got to see him. I say, show me a picture, put face, I want to FaceTime, you know. And so she, you know, put him on FaceTime, you know, while he was laying in the bed. And of course he was lifeless. And, you know, and of course, while we had him on FaceTime, I snapped a few pictures of him, right, just laying there. But then I immediately, Sarah, I went into my photos and I found one of my favorite pictures of me and my dad. Ooh. And I pulled it up, and I remember looking at the picture of him when he was alive, and I'm looking at his eyes in the picture, and then I'm looking at my dad laying in that hospital bed, no longer alive. And I'm looking at him, I'm looking at these pictures side by side. I got one on my phone and one on my iPad. I'm looking, and I was like, wow, my dad's not in that body anymore, right?
Right.
And I didn't see the life wasn't in his eyes.
Yeah.
But the love that I had for my dad was still in my heart. And I was like, wow, the only thing that happened with my dad was he expanded past the limitations of that body. I didn't need to buy into a story of him going to heaven to have peace. I didn't need to buy into a fear that if he was going to go to hell, right? I accepted that, you know what, to the extent of what I do know, this physical body that his energy, his life, his spirit made up is going to go back into the ground. And it's going to become life to everyone. It's going to become fertilizer to trees, to plants, right? So life moves on, right? Life cycles. And that freed me from pain, right? You know, it freed me from pain. It was like, wow, my dad is giving even more life out, right? He's even more powerful than he was when he was alive. And it took away that excruciating sadness that you have when someone passes. Now, of course, I miss my dad. I miss our conversations. I miss our banter, right? But at the same time, it's like he expanded past the limitations of his body, and I have to accept that.
I love that
story that comforts my unwillingness to let go.
That's so awesome. That's also a great way to end tonight, and with something that you said here, which then it fits into what you said about your dad. So he expanded past also our knowledge of what happens, right? But you also said let life unfold while you create your own life, and you're into this whole expansion thing. There's little themes in what you're saying. So the expansion, the freedom, all these things, and hopefully all of this that you're talking about, you're like so very wise. You're so wise. But everything that, I mean, you gotta go back and listen to this and take notes, and like it's an outline for a book, I swear. Like it's so great. But I hope this blessed everyone that is out there listening to this. It definitely reinforced things, you know, nothing happens by mistake. Like a lot of what you said is like stuff that I'm struggling with. And I hope it also helps anyone out there that could be struggling with the same. And most of the time, that's the way it happens. Like earlier we talked and you said we're a reflection of each other. And I think even people that show up here and are listening, we're here for a reason. There's a reason why we needed to hear this. There's a reason why today you and I did this, and we never did it before, you know? And I needed to hear what you had to say today. I honestly really needed to hear that. And I don't always have to hear it. A lot of times it's just, oh, it's conversation. But today I needed to hear what you said. I totally needed to hear what you said. So I feel very blessed in hearing what you said. As soon as we're done, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna write what I want. That's what I'm gonna do tonight. I'm in the hotel. All these kids fell asleep. They're in their bed right now. Everybody's passed out. I am good. I'm free. I'm going to type up what I want in different areas because you just like you re-fertilized what has been asked of me for the last 2 weeks. You know, that person is very good that he's been asking me that. Like I need someone to be asking me that because I'm asking to myself, So thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for these questions that reinforced what I needed to hear. And hopefully it was awesome for you to like speak up here. The gift back to you is, if you listen to this and just listen to the points you made, it's outline for a book. It's an outline. You need to go back and listen and outline everything you just said. Because sometimes we don't hear what we're saying. We just speak about it, and we take for granted like all this wisdom coming out. But go back and listen to it and put it like outline it. You don't need to do any other thing but outline this and start writing.
I will. I definitely will. And I appreciate you for allowing me to come on. I know we've been planning to do this for a long time, and I'm so glad that I finally came onto this platform. You are awesome. The Circle of Champions Worldwide, an awesome group. I'm so happy to be a part of the group. You got some heavy hitters in the group, and I'm so glad to be connected to y'all.
Yeah, we're so to have you. And we gotta do more stuff. We gotta do part two. Part two is gonna be like, how do we expand? Once you figured it out, once you figured out the what, how do we expand?
I'll drop this nugget before we get off, right? So once you figure out what it is that you want, and that's gonna change. Remember, we're no longer living in absolutes. We're living in expansion. But once you kind of figure out what you want, and I shared this with my writing partner. You have to now start to reduce the time frame between when you think about something and when you take action. That time frame, it used to be, I want to write. I think I wanted to write a blog 7 years ago, but I didn't do nothing with it. Then I wrote a blog, and then I only wrote about 2-3 blogs, and then I stopped doing it. Right. But then I think it's early 2019, I said, Shon, you're going to write a blog. You're going to show up. And I said, I think I wrote a blog every day, 7 days a week for about 3 months. And the reason why I did it is because I had to own doing it. And I had to do it immediately. I bought the website, the domain name. I formatted the website. And I did this all myself. And I am not a website developer. I don't have no skills like that. And then I wrote my first piece, and I had to do it all in 24 hours. You know why I had to do it all in 24 hours? Because the thought came to me, and I said, you're not going to keep giving yourself excuses to not show up how you want to show up. So you have 24 hours to put this together, baby girl. And I put it together. So I think once you kind of start figuring out what you want and you own it, you reduce that frame to action, right? And that doesn't mean, I've been blogging and I got podcasts, and it's not like I got thousands and millions of followers, right? But I don't let that be the judge of me showing up, right?
Right. And that's another one I needed to hear. Like, I'm gonna go back and listen to this. It's good. Thank you, Coach. I'm gonna call you Coach. That was awesome. I'm telling you, you have no idea. I'm not even kidding. These are things I'm struggling with right now that I need to do. So this last nugget you dropped was. It's it's stuff we know, but then we're like, that man, you're a man. That's exactly what it is. Like, it's just because it's easy to not do it for yourself. It's so easy to push it to tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes a week, a month, 3 months, 6 months. Ridiculous. I'm so tired of myself right now. I'm like mad at myself. I'm listening to it, like, you know what? You need to listen to what she just said.
Time is your friend. I always say my number one saying is that time is on my side. I just don't have enough time. I say, nope, time is on my side.
All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate you.
Let's stay connected and let's keep doing things together. Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care.
Right, good night.
Good night. Have joy. Bye-bye.